Buenas tardes a todas y todos. Es un honor darles la más cordial bienvenida a esta Jornada Nacional 2025. Comunidad, equidad e interculturalidad en la enseñanza del inglés. Soy Ale Alfaro y es un placer ser su anfitriona en esta jornada. En el marco de las acciones de fortalecimiento académico impulsadas por la Dirección General de Gestión Escolar y Enfoque Territorial a través del Programa Nacional de Inglés, PRONI, y en colaboración con el British Council, se lleva a cabo este importante encuentro, concebido como un espacio de formación, análisis y reflexión colectiva que permitirá a los y las asesoras educativos especializados, así como a los docentes de inglés, fortalecer sus conocimientos sobre el uso didáctico y pedagógico de los materiales de apoyo PRONI en el marco de la nueva escuela mexicana. Reciban un afectuoso saludo a asesoras y asesores educativos especializados, docentes de inglés y especialistas en la enseñanza del idioma inglés de todo el país. Nos complace profundamente contar con su presencia en esta jornada que, año con año, busca consolidar una comunidad de aprendizaje comprometida con una educación más equitativa, inclusiva y con sentido social. De igual forma, extendemos un saludo muy especial a las y los docentes de inglés de Colombia, Chile y Perú, países que, al igual que México, conforman la red de inglés de la Alianza del Pacífico, RIAP. Su participación en esta jornada enriquece el intercambio de experiencias, saberes y prácticas pedagógicas que fortalecen la enseñanza del inglés. Y antes de dar inicio formal a esta jornada, les compartiré algunas consideraciones. Por favor, tengan en cuenta que el horario de las sesiones anunciados en el programa se basa en el horario de Centro de México. Les invitamos a participar en el chat con apertura y cordialidad, reconociendo que el intercambio respetuoso enriquece el aprendizaje colectivo. Es fundamental realizar el registro de asistencia a través de los enlaces que se compartirán al finalizar cada día. No es necesario que nos compartan sus datos personales en el chat. Recuerden que todas las sesiones impartidas durante estos días quedarán grabadas y las podrán ver nuevamente y hasta el 31 de octubre utilizando los enlaces que aparecen en su programa. Les pedimos verificar cuidadosamente los datos que ingresen en los formularios, ya que su constancia será emitida conforme el nombre que hayan registrado. Respecto a los accesos de las transmisiones, el proceso es muy sencillo. Deben ingresar al enlace de YouTube proporcionado en el programa oficial de cada sesión. Al término de cada sesión, habrá un corto receso antes de continuar con la siguiente ponencia. Podrán acceder a la siguiente sesión dando clic en el botón Entre aquí o Join Here, que se encuentra en el programa de actividades. A continuación, permítanme presentar a las autoridades que forman nuestro presidium. Estamos honrados de tener la presencia de maestro Darren Coyle, MBE y director de British Council México. Maestra Silvia Rosa Pinto Guaman, especialista pedagógica para la coordinación de gestión del Ministerio de Educación en Perú, país que este año lidera la red de inglés de la Alianza del Pacífico RIAP. Maestro José Emilio Mejía Mateos, director general de Gestión Escolar y Enfoque Territorial. Muchas gracias por estar con nosotros. Y para iniciar las participaciones de esta jornada, cedo el espacio al maestro y MBE Darren Coyle, Country Director de British Council México, quien nos dirigirá un mensaje de bienvenida.
Muchas gracias, Ale. Muy buenas tardes a todos y a todas. Soy Darren Coyle de British Council aquí en México. En British Council, como ya saben, somos el experto global en temas de enseñanza, de aprendizaje y de evaluación de inglés. Es un honor saludar respetuosamente a las queridas autoridades que hoy nos acompañan, en especial al maestro José Emilio Mejía, director general de Gestión Escolar y Enfoque Territorial. A la maestra también Silvia Rosa Pinto Guamán, especialista pedagógica para la coordinación de gestión del Ministerio de Educación en Perú, país que este año lidera la red de inglés de la Alianza del Pacífico, así como a los representantes y los profesores de Chile, Colombia, Perú y México, todos miembros de la Alianza del Pacífico, que nos acompañan de manera virtual. Saludo con especial afecto a los y a las docentes de inglés que nos acompañan desde distintos rincones del México y de estos países hermanos de la región. Gracias a todos por estar aquí. Es un gran honor estar con ustedes en la apertura de la Jornada Nacional 2025. Unir fuerzas y estar juntos en este evento, en un evento como este, refleja el compromiso compartido que tenemos con el fortalecimiento de la educación y el apoyo a las y a los docentes en su labor tan importante para todos. Este año celebramos la 6ª edición de la Jornada Nacional, en la que el British Council ha participado activamente desde sus inicios. A lo largo de los años, este evento se ha consolidado como una plataforma poderosa para la colaboración, el aprendizaje y la innovación en la enseñanza del idioma inglés. Cada año, la Jornada Nacional ha apoyado en el desarrollo profesional de más de 15,000 docentes de inglés que trabajan en educación básica y en el sector público. Su labor tiene un impacto indirecto en millones de estudiantes, niveles de alcance extraordinarios que demuestran el poder transformador de la educación. Como ya mencioné, en esta edición nos honra la participación de la Red de Inglés de la Alianza del Pacífico. Esta colaboración nos abre las puertas a acciones conjuntas que fortalecerán las capacidades de enseñanza del inglés entre nuestros países de la región, que consolidarán aún más las comunidades de aprendizaje y desarrollo de las habilidades en inglés de las y los estudiantes en toda la región. Lo que hace especialmente significativa esta jornada es que los temas fueran seleccionados a partir de propuestas realizadas por docentes con el objetivo de responder a necesidades reales del aula y que por su carácter flexible permite adaptarlos a distintos contextos sociales, escolares, promoviendo mejores prácticas de enseñanza. Este foro es más que una conferencia, es una comunidad, un espacio donde se intercambian ideas, se comparten experiencias y se crean nuevas conexiones. Es una oportunidad para celebrar el trabajo de las y los docentes, aprender unos de otros y seguir construyendo un futuro en el que cada estudiante tenga acceso a una educación de calidad en el idioma inglés. Gracias por estar aquí, por su compromiso y por el impacto que generan cada día. Hagamos de esta Jornada Nacional 2025 una experiencia memorable e inspiradora para todos y todas. Muchas gracias.
Agradecemos a MB Darren Coyle por su mensaje y el valioso acompañamiento que el British Council brinda al Programa Nacional de Inglés en favor del fortalecimiento profesional docente y del aprendizaje de las y los estudiantes. Gracias, maestro Darren Coyle. A continuación, me complace presentar a la maestra Silvia Rosa Pinto Guaman, especialista pedagógica para la coordinación de gestión del Ministerio de Educación en Perú, país que este año lidera la red de inglés de la Alianza del Pacífico, RIAP. Bienvenida.
Muchísimas gracias. Bien, en calidad de la RIAP, vamos a dirigirnos a los maestros y maestras en inglés para un poquito acercarnos a ellos en su labor pedagógica también, ¿no? Entonces, it's really a great honor to warmly welcome you to this pedagogical event. Thank you very much for the Secretaría de Educación Pública in Mexico, the representatives and authorities, and also to Mr. Darren Coyle, representative of British Council in Mexico, and of course, thank you very much for being here, to all the different teachers along these different 4 members of Alianza del Pacífico. As I mentioned, it's an honor to be here with you. And in this event, especially organized by the Secretaría Pública de Mexico and the Pacific Alliance, and of course by our English network, RIAP. We really feel deeply satisfied to see so many brilliant minds gathered here today, teachers committed to their role in the formation of world citizens. You're the heart of English education in our countries. You are the agents of change who are planting the seeds of global communication and regional integration in our classrooms. Your commitment is essential to achieving the vision of an alliance, a region that is more competitive, more connected, and bilingual. Throughout this day, I invite you to share your best practices, to reflect on our teaching methods, and to build connections that go beyond borders. Take advantage of this space to enrich one another so that the learning you gain here can multiply in each of your classrooms. Together, we will raise the standards of English teaching in the Pacific Alliance. I wish you a very productive and transformative event. Thank you very much.
Agradecemos las palabras de Silvia Rosa Pinto Woman y el compromiso que, desde Perú, se impulsa para consolidar el trabajo colaborativo entre los países miembros del RIAP. Muchas gracias, maestra. Ahora escucharemos el mensaje para el inicio formal de esta jornada del maestro José Emilio Mejía Mateos, director general de Gestión Escolar y Enfoque Territorial.
¿Qué tal? Buenas tardes. Reciban un afectuoso saludo de parte de nuestro secretario de Educación Pública, el maestro Mario Delgado Carrillo, y de parte de la doctora Angélica Noemí Juárez Pérez, subsecretaria de Educación Básica. A este espacio concurrimos habitualmente con maestras, maestros, asesoras, asesores educativos especializados que se hacen cargo de la enseñanza en los distintos niveles de educación básica de nuestro país a través del Programa Nacional de Inglés, y también concurrimos con nuestros colegas del Consejo Británico, a quienes también saludo con mucho afecto. Esta ocasión es especial porque nos acompañan también docentes de educación media superior y superior de nuestro país. Esto ha sido posible a partir de esta articulación de esfuerzos que desde la Subsecretaría de Educación Básica empezamos a generar con las otras dos subsecretarías de la Secretaría de Educación Pública. Entonces, es importante darles la bienvenida a los asistentes de nuestro país de la educación media superior y de la educación superior. Pero también es especial esta ocasión porque tenemos la participación de colegas de Colombia, Chile y Perú, países con quienes compartimos trabajo a través de la red de inglés en la Alianza del Pacífico. Esta relación entre naciones nos invita a pensar y actuar como una comunidad regional, unida por el propósito de fortalecer la enseñanza del idioma inglés, pensando en las comunidades, en equidad y en la interculturalidad. Y aprovechando la lectura de este párrafo, me refiero al nombre de esta Jornada Nacional PRONI 2025, Comunidad, Equidad e Interculturalidad en la enseñanza del inglés. Y de eso se trata, de formar y transformar la comunidad en su más amplia dimensión y expresión. Se trata de que haya comunidades fuertes, comunidades democráticas en las que la justicia y la igualdad florezca. Por eso, hoy inauguramos la Jornada Nacional PRONI 2025 con el título que ya dije, como una de las acciones de fortalecimiento académico impulsadas por la Dirección General de Educación Básica a través de la Dirección General de Gestión Escolar y Enfoque Territorial y de manera particular del Programa Nacional de Inglés. Durante los próximos 3 días, esta jornada será un espacio de diálogo, reflexión y aprendizaje compartidos, un punto de encuentro donde van a converger experiencias, voces e ideas que dan vida al propósito más noble de la educación, transformar la realidad a través del conocimiento. La nueva escuela mexicana nos invita a repensar la enseñanza como un acto situado en la comunidad, que reconoce la diversidad cultural, lingüística y territorial de nuestro país y de las diferentes regiones que lo conforman. En este marco, la enseñanza del inglés cobra un nuevo sentido. No se trata solamente de dominar un idioma extranjero, sino de abrir ventanas hacia otros mundos, de fortalecer el pensamiento crítico y de fomentar la comprensión intercultural y promover la participación de nuestras y nuestros estudiantes. El inglés, desde esta visión, es un puente que une comunidades, que favorece el diálogo entre culturas, que amplía horizontes y que nos permite imaginar un futuro compartido, en el que todas las voces tienen cabida y pueden ser escuchadas. Por ello, enseñar inglés es también enseñar empatía, respeto, curiosidad y apertura. Es formar ciudadanas y ciudadanos del mundo orgullosos de su identidad y capaces de reconocer la riqueza de la diversidad. El PRONI ha sido a lo largo de los años coadyuvantes en el fortalecimiento de la enseñanza del inglés en educación básica. A través de sus acciones se promueve la profesionalización docente, la creación de materiales contextualizados, el acompañamiento académico y el trabajo colaborativo entre las entidades federativas. En 2025, el programa beneficia a millones de niñas, niños y adolescentes que aprenden inglés en las aulas de educación básica y por primera vez en esta jornada abre sus puertas a la participación, decía yo, de docentes de media superior y superior, reafirmando que la enseñanza del idioma nos une más allá de las edades, de los niveles educativos y de las diferencias que pudiéramos tener. Queridas maestras, queridos maestros, queridas asesoras educativas especializadas, queridos asesores educativos especializados y queridos participantes de esta reunión. Esta jornada nacional es ante todo una celebración a su trabajo. En sus manos está la capacidad de inspirar, de motivar, de encender la chispa del aprendizaje en cada estudiante. Su dedicación, creatividad y compromiso con la mejora constante son el motor que impulsa la transformación educativa que hoy vive nuestro país. Y en este proceso, hablaba yo de comunidades, hay que referirse también a las comunidades de aprendizaje, que juegan un papel fundamental, porque cuando las y los docentes comparten sus experiencias, reflexionan colectivamente y aprenden unos de otros, el conocimiento se multiplica y fortalece. La conformación de comunidades de aprendizaje representa un cambio de paradigma, pasar de la labor individual a la construcción colectiva, del aula aislada a la red colaborativa, del esfuerzo solitario a la fuerza del trabajo conjunto. En comunidad, los logros se amplifican, las dificultades se transforman en oportunidades y las buenas prácticas trascienden los muros de la escuela. Por ello, los invito a que durante esos 3 días nos abramos al diálogo, compartamos nuestras experiencias y nos atrevamos a innovar. Que cada participación, que cada ponencia, que cada taller, que cada intercambio sean una semilla que germinará en nuestras aulas y en nuestras comunidades. Que lo aprendido aquí, estamos seguros, va a traspasar los espacios de formación y va a llegar a los niños, las niñas, las y los adolescentes, las y los jóvenes de nuestros países, quienes son, en última instancia, la razón de ser de nuestro trabajo. La educación es al mismo tiempo un acto de esperanza y de responsabilidad, y ustedes, docentes de inglés, son agentes de esa esperanza. Son quienes tienden puentes, quienes abren puertas, quienes muestran caminos. Su tarea no solo es enseñar un idioma, sino que transforma vidas. A nombre de la Subsecretaria de Educación Básica, reiteramos nuestro reconocimiento y compromiso al esfuerzo colectivo que se expresa el día de hoy. Agradecemos profundamente al Consejo Británico por su colaboración y a las representaciones de Chile, Colombia y Perú por sumarse con entusiasmo a este esfuerzo regional que fortalece nuestras capacidades y estrecha los lazos de cooperación. Sean todas y todos bienvenidos a esta Jornada Nacional PRONI 2025. Muchas gracias.
Con estas palabras damos formalmente inicio a la Jornada Nacional 2025 denominada Comunidad, Equidad e Interculturalidad en la enseñanza del inglés, un espacio de diálogo, aprendizaje y colaboración que nos invita a seguir construyendo desde nuestras comunidades escolares una educación en inglés más equitativa, intercultural y con sentido humano. Muchas gracias a nuestro presidium y pues les invitamos a que disfruten con nosotros en nuestra primera sesión del día. Mil gracias, ha sido un honor. Now, we're going to switch to English. To begin with our first presentation, I am pleased to introduce our speaker, Sergio Durand. Sergio Durand has been involved in ELT for about 20 years. He has been a material writer for EF Santillana Raise Up. He's also been a teacher trainer for SEP, speaking examiner and assessor for Cambridge, English, Oxford Test of English, an international speaker for the LATAM, BBELT, and Mestizol, national coordinator for BBELT, TR SIG, published researcher for various journals, and project manager for Multilingua LC. Welcome.
Hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Glad to be here. Thank you for the kind introduction, Ale. I would like to start by thanking the British Council. I would like to thank also the Real for this kind invitation. I am very happy to be here with with teachers from all over Mexico, and with teachers from fellow countries that, I've had the pleasure and honor to have worked in and with, like Peru, Chile, and Colombia. Thank you for being here. Welcome. I would like to thank to the Ministries of Education of Mexico, Peru, Colombia, and Chile for this invitation. And it's time to start. This presentation, I hope it's useful for you, and I tried to create a presentation that is dynamic, that is interactive. So I would like you to be in the chat box, commenting and participating and sharing your different insights about this. Okay. Let's start. As you know, this is the title of my talk. It's called ELT in LATAM, Latin America, Becoming Glocally Aware. And, it's new. Some of these words can be new for some of you. Maybe you are familiar with the term glocal, or maybe not, but don't worry. Today we're going to try to see what it means and how we can integrate it into our teaching and our language learning, right? So let's start. The first thing I would like you to do, please, is go to the chat box. You probably see, again, I'm going to show you again the title of my talk, ELT in Latin America, Becoming Glocally Aware. So I wanted to go to the chat box and type one word that you think you're going to hear or read today here in my talk. Only one word, one concept, one idea that you think we're going to be discussing today in our presentation. I've seen the first teaching, learning, share, interculturality, thank you. Community, sure. Cultural, of course, well done. Strategies, teaching, NEM, probably. Strategies, unity, happiness, that's a nice word. Education, learning, school, sharing, students, communication, globalization, that's an interesting aspect. Global context, education, study, global learning, gamification, probably. Change, Yeah, well, I'm just reading some of your comments. Yeah, of course, all of you are right. Well, it's interesting to see equity strategies. I am reading some of your comments, and of course all of them are really interesting, and all of them are probably right. Some of them might not be totally right, but well, this is part of this starter. I want you to be involved. I want you to be sharing, and thank you for sharing this. So let's start. And the first activity that I'm going to do with you, and taking advantage that we have invited teachers from Peru, Colombia, Chile, and of course Mexico. So I would like to do an exercise, like an intercultural exercise with you. I am going to show you some pictures of some, let's say, cultural symbols that might be relevant for us in Latin America. I want you to go to the chat box and type the country or region of a country where you think or that you associate these symbols with. Yeah, for example, you see something and then you think, I mean, if you associate it with Mexico, well, type Mexico. If you think it's particular of a region in Mexico or particular of a region in Colombia, just type that region. We would like to learn maybe a lot more about your countries, so that would be very nice. So I'm going to show you some of these pictures in a moment, and then you just go and type what country or region of the country you think this symbol is associated with. Okay, so the first one is coffee. What do you associate, or what country, what region do you guys associate coffee with? Yeah, I'm saying Peru, Mexico. Okay, Colombia. Yeah, good one. Colombia, more Colombia. Veracruz. Yes, good. What else? Colombia. Okay, the mountainous regions. Yeah, of course. Tolima. Okay, great. I didn't know that Tolima is a producer of coffee in Colombia, but it's good to learn that. Culiacán, Veracruz. Peru. Yeah, good. Excellent. Estado de Mexico. Okay. All right. So I see that if you see the answers are quite varied, right? I mean, we have some people that associated with certain region, certain country, and people that associated with another one, right? I'm going to show you a second one. Oh, sorry. You saw the second one. Ceviche. I'm sorry, I am showing you this delicious ceviche at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in Mexico, 4 o'clock in Bogota and Lima. Maybe our Chilean friends are thinking more about dinner because it's 6 o'clock for you guys, but well, sorry if I am making you hungry. But yeah, I assume you're associating this with a country or with a region of a country, right? Well, someone is associated it with breakfast. Okay, good. Well, some of you are already giving your opinions about the who has the best ceviche. Don't worry that. Don't worry about that. For now, it's just mentioning the country. Yeah. Okay. Good. Excellent. I'm going to show you the next one. Yeah. That is avocado. And no, we are not going to have the famous controversy, aguacate or palta. No, it's not time for that today. Just mention the place where you think that this delicious fruit vegetable is from, right? Well, it's a salad, of course. But yeah, a lot of people associated with Michoacán, right? Michoacán in Mexico. But I am sure that some people also associated with Chile, yeah, and Peru, right? You Chilean people are also big producers of avocados. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Oh, and Colombia too. Interesting. Yeah. Well, that's why our 4 countries are great countries, because all of us, we can eat avocados, and that's why we are happy, because we have avocados all over the year, right? Okay. I'm going to show you one more. Yeah. And it's a beautiful animal that I like a lot. Yeah. So these llamas, what country are they associated with? Yeah. I'm really sure that haven't seen llamas in Mexico yet. Well, only at the zoo, right? But yeah, of course, it is associated with Peru. But I assume that some regions in the north of Chile too, right? That's what I know. Haven't been there yet, but that's what I heard. That some places in the north of Chile and Bolivia too, right? They also have llamas, and it's a beautiful animal, really interesting. And thank you. All right. So, yeah, thank you for sharing this. This was a really interesting exercise that we have just done, just to start talking about culture. Yeah, culture is a huge word, and there are many definitions about culture, and I would spend probably 3 hours talking about the definition of culture, but we're not going to go into that. I think we all roughly understand what culture is, right? But let's talk about these assumptions. Yeah, I call them that, cultural assumptions. We assume that something belongs to a certain place or to a certain country, right? We assume that llamas are from Peru. We assume that coffee is from Colombia, that ceviche is from Peru too, and that avocados are from Mexico or Chile, right? But during this exercise, we realized that many people around the 4 countries also associate those ideas, those concepts, those national symbols to their own culture, right? Because it's part of the culture of those regions too. So, for example, Colombian people were very proud when they say, yeah, coffee, it's Colombian, right? But yeah, well, I live in Mexico, and I specifically live in the city of Jalapa, Veracruz. And in this region, coffee is super important. People are proud of their coffee. A lot of people make a living due to the exportation of coffee. So it is also a very important symbol for us. So the question is, do cultural assumptions like this divide us or unite us, right? That is quite interesting to analyze, right? Because let's just think that sometimes global culture group people according to their looks, according to their religion, according to their language, according to many different aspects, right? We are grouped in different things. And sometimes being part of that group means something specific, right? And that's part of the culture. Some of you are saying that they unite us. And of course, I would like to say that they unite us because we are now known also as Latin American people. And a lot of these things, some people know that they come from specific countries, but many other people would say, yeah, coffee, it comes from Latin America. Llamas come from Latin America or from South America. And the same with ceviche and avocados. That happens because, as I said before, global culture group us, right? And that's not necessarily wrong, because that's a way to understand the world. Yeah. Think of how we learn a language, or how we learn vocabulary. Sometimes it's a lot easier to group or organize or classify words in different groups. And that's what global culture does, right? We are all part of a certain kind of culture. Yeah. That's why we are grouped, right, in different names like Latin America, the Middle East, or Africa. These are just some examples. Think of, when you refer sometimes to the African continent, you never mention, unfortunately, the country, or you don't say, elephants live in Uganda, or no, you just say elephants live in Africa, right? Because we tend to group that. Or the same with the Middle East. Yeah, somewhere in the Middle East. And well, it's the same with people in other countries. They tend to say, oh yeah, somewhere in Latin America, even if, of course, our cultural assumptions, our cultural symbols are very important for us, nationalistically speaking, right? Coffee is very important for Colombians. Avocados are very important for us in Mexico. The same with other symbols, right? And well, and we are grouped when we tick certain boxes, right? Oh, in my case, Sergio speaks this language. He belongs to this ethnic group. He has this religion and this nationality. He belongs to that country or to that group, right? And if not, maybe we are not a proper Mexican or a proper Peruvian or a proper Colombian, right? If you don't dance, if you don't play the guitar, maybe you are not a proper Latin American or something, right? But that happens because people tend to group us in different areas, right? So this can be, of course, something that, well, it's something common. It's something that happens all the time, right? But it's a complex, let's say, it's problematic sometimes, because as we have realized during the previous exercise, sometimes certain idea we think belongs to certain group of people, but it actually belongs to other, or maybe everybody feels that it belongs to them, right? Well, we did this exercise to show you a couple of things. These very two important things that you can see in my slide. Cultural assumptions are complex. Yeah, they are very complex because, well, as you can see in the slide, everybody has different histories and different backgrounds. Yeah, and as I said before, with the example of coffee, right? Maybe Colombia as a country feels very proud about coffee, and they export coffee, and if you go anywhere in the world, they are known for their coffee. But it's also very important for someone in my city here in Jalapa, Veracruz, or in the region of the center of Veracruz, because as I said before, it's something that they have been drinking all their life. It's something that their grandparents and great grandparents cultivated, and they made a living out of it. So we all have different stories and different backgrounds, and each cultural symbol or cultural representation sometimes might be different for everybody, right? That is one thing that I wanted to show you with this exercise. The second thing is that, look at us. We all speak Spanish, right? We all speak the same language. Well, as our first language, some of us also speak other languages, maybe some regional languages, or or from the pueblos originarios languages. But at the end of the day, people in other countries or in other areas of the world sometimes group us as Latin Americans, right? But look at how different we think. Look at how different conceptions we have of the world, right? How different visions of the world we have. And that's really interesting to see when a lot of us thought, oh, yeah, avocado is from this area, but actually the people think it's from another area. So this is important to mention, that a language doesn't unify identity, yeah? And the same happens with English, right? The same happens with English, because we tend to group people that speak English as their first language, and we think that they all have the same kind of culture, but they don't, right? We have people from the United States, we have people from United Kingdom, but also from some other, let's call them smaller countries like Jamaica or Nigeria. Well, Nigeria is not small, it's actually a huge country, but they speak English as their first language. And sometimes we don't take into account, or we don't take them into account as speakers of English, right? So language doesn't unify identity. Of course, it is an important characteristic of our identity, but even if we all speak Spanish, we all have different backgrounds, different histories, and different cultural assumptions, right? Thank you for sharing in the chat box. I'm not able to read all of your opinions and comments and ideas, but well, thank you very much for being there. as I speak, I try to read some of them, and at the same time I'm reading and speaking, and it's hard, but thank you for doing that. You're enriching this talk a lot, and that's what I wanted you to be doing, right? So let's just move on. But at the same time, we're going to continue talking about culture, right? And language and identity and ideas, right? Yeah, I'm going there. Some of you are asking, what is the point of all this? Just wait a second. Yeah, I am going there. My question is about the word glocal, right? What is glocal? Well, of course, glocal, it's a word that is compounded by two different words, global and local, that somehow may look contradictory, right? Global and local, well, they are opposites. Are they? Look, okay, I'm going to talk about what is glocal, but I want you to help me a little bit with the following. I am using the example of gastronomy to picture what glocal is. Yeah. Why do you think I am using the example of gastronomy? Yeah. Okay. Go to the chat box and mention some examples. Why do you think I am using the example of gastronomy? Yeah. Of food. Yeah. Why is it important to talk about glocal when we talk about gastronomy? Remember, it's global and local at the same time. Glocal. Go to the chat box and show me global in the local. Okay, tacos, identity, food and economy. Okay, because we like different types of food, not necessarily just Mexican food. Yeah, of course, that's true. Traditions. Yeah. Okay, what else? Because everybody eats. Well, of course, everybody eats, and we need eating, right? I see other things because gastronomy is super representative from each country. Yes, that's a good point. Gastronomy is super representative of each country. Yeah, because we can have similar dishes, but with its differences. Interesting. We're passionate about food. Yeah, and you know what? I think the four of us, Mexico, Colombia, Chile, and Peru, we all have great gastronomies, fantastic food, and that's why we love it, right? And you're mentioning some interesting points. And I'm going to go into that now. Well, let's take the example of tacos, right? Tacos was something particular of Mexico for a while, right? With globalization, it went viral, like children or kids say today, right? It went global. It became something global because it was just famous and everybody seems to like tacos, right? But let's just imagine this. People in Australia, people in Denmark, people in Thailand, they don't have the same ingredients that we do here in Mexico, right? To prepare the salsa, to even make the tortilla, right? So they have to use their own ingredients. They have to use their own local ingredients to create something that has become something global, right? And in this case, they are adding their own flavor they're adding their own flavor to a global dish in this case, right? So if you notice, and yeah, we Mexican people, we get angry when we watch videos of people preparing tacos somewhere else, and we say no, that's not a proper taco. And maybe we are right, but at the same time, they don't have the same ingredients, they don't have the same history that we have, they don't have the same background, and they are just reproducing something that is global with their own ingredients, with their own flavor, right? And this word flavor is very important because with flavor, we are adding our culture, we are adding our history, we are adding these spices that we are adding. Yeah, they are the important thing, the thing that makes us unique, right? So that's why, and the same happens with ceviche. Yeah, so some of you are mentioning some of these, like ceviche or sushi or pizza. Pizza is another glocal dish now, right? I mean, if you go to Barranquilla in Colombia or to Cusco in Peru or to Iquique in Chile, you're not, and you see a pizzeria, you're not expecting a Napolitan pizza there, right? You're expecting probably that pizzas are or have a little bit of local flavor, right? Because they are cooked with certain ingredients, right? They are cooked with different views, and of course, they are cooked by someone who has lived there for forever. That's why gastronomy is glocal. Yeah. So you see, I wanted to use this example of gastronomy to portray or to show you what glocal is. My next question is this. So go to the chat box and answer this question now. Do you think that English language teaching, do you think that ELT is something glocal? What do you think? Go to the chat box and tell me. ELT, English language teaching, is it something glocal? Yeah. Some of you are saying, okay, yes, of course. Yes, it is. Some of you are saying, yes. Yeah. Some of you are still talking about pizza. Sorry, I just made you hungry because we're just talking about food. Sorry, I know I haven't eaten lunch either, so I feel you. But now we're going to move on, and let's talk about what we do. That is English language teaching. So yeah, ELT is something glocal because English language, that was something that was a language that was spoken in a little island in the north of Europe, became global for many political reasons that we're not going to discuss today. Yeah, but it became something global, and nowadays that is something global. Everybody that speaks English today, we are adding certain flavor to it, right? Maybe with our accent, maybe with our vision of the world, maybe with the influence of our first language, but we are adding something local. We are adding something local to it. So English is now something local, and not just the language. I asked you about ELT, English language teaching. Even teaching now is glocal, because yeah, the majority of methodologies were developed in the UK or in the United States or in Europe, but nowadays that we have been using them for a long while in Latin America or in the Middle East or in countries in Africa, we have added some flavor to it, right? It's not the same. I mean, I'm just going to mention one methodology. I don't know. The communicative approach is not the same that it was when it was, let's say, developed, right? Nowadays, especially in our region, we use something different, right? We have adapted this methodology to our context. Yeah. So that's why not just English as a language, but ELT in general, English language teaching, has become something glocal. Yeah, something that first was particular, then it went global, and now it's been adapted to all the different contexts where we live, right? Thank you. So far, so good. Yeah. So we know that it's what glocal is, and now we understand that ELT is something local. So for those that were asking me like 10 minutes ago, I mean, why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about coffee and culture and particular things and local things and then global and grouping? Well, this is why, right? Because I wanted you to think of that culture, our cultural assumptions sometimes can be something very local, but there are also another global idea of them, right? Thank you. So now, thinking about English as a language that we all teach, right? We have this, let's say, this dichotomy today, right? English as a foreign language versus English used as a lingua franca. You know, the concept of lingua franca is something that the Romans invented thousands of years ago when they talked Latin, and if you moved across Europe, Latin was the common language, and they called it the lingua franca. And then now English is the lingua franca of the world, right? It's a language that we all speak in order to communicate with different people in the world, right? But think of this. Probably a lot of you learned English in the previous century, in the last century, in the 20th century, or in the first years of this century. And think of how you learned English. I think we learned English having in mind a target culture, either American culture, Canadian, British culture, right? And all the textbooks, had lessons about the culture of the USA. I don't know, going to New York, or a day in Shakespeare's times, or all of them had cultural references to a target culture. In this case, American, British. That's why still many people today ask you, what kind of English do you speak? Do you speak American or British English? And nowadays, I just say, well, I just speak English, But back in the day, it was important to think of a target culture, right? And think of how other languages like French, for example, or Spanish. I assume that maybe some of you guys have also had the opportunity of teaching Spanish as a second language. And think of how many of the textbooks, even today, of Spanish, they refer to Hispanic culture, right? Either in Spain or Latin America. They talk about, I don't know, Salma Hayek or Rafael Nadal or Leo Messi, and they talk about Peru, and they talk about Madrid, and they have a target culture, right? That's how English was like some years ago, right? But nowadays, English has changed, and it's changed because English became the lingua franca. In the beginning of this century, some people started realizing this, and they realized, that many of the conversations that happen in English happened between two people that do not speak English as their first language. So look at the example there. Seidhofer, a researcher from 2004, he did his research, and he found out that 80% of the conversations that happen between two people, most of the time they are between two people that do not speak English as their first language. So they are either between someone from Japan and someone from Germany, someone from Mexico and someone from Thailand, someone from Peru and someone from Sweden. The majority, 4 out of 5 conversations that happened in 2004, they were between two people that do not speak English as their first language. So I assume there is no more current evidence, apparently, but I assume that the number is higher today with the internet, and with multinational companies having offices in London and in Sao Paulo and in Santiago and in Lima at the same time. They have to communicate in English all the time. So I assume that this number is higher, but let's just stay with this number. 80%, 4 out of 5 conversations happen between people that do not speak English as their first language. So people started thinking, what is the point of thinking or having as a reference only one target culture, right? And it's nothing, and of course, there's nothing wrong with American or British culture or Canadian culture. It's just that let's say, for useful reasons, there is no point in only teaching one of them. It's important to instead show our students that English language is something that is spoken all over the world, and that we need this language to talk to everybody, not just American or British people. That's why in the approach English as a lingua franca, we don't have only one target culture, right? Cultural values and meaning, as it says there in the slide, they are built by the speakers. They are built through understanding, through negotiating or through negotiation, and at the end agreeing on something, right? It is a little agreement that we do every time we speak with someone that we know that we know he or she, they don't speak English as their first language, right? We have this negotiation in which cultural values and meaning and everything is negotiated, right? It's not just adapting to a target culture. Like, I am talking to someone in the USA, so I need to adapt to his culture or her culture because he's American and I'm speaking English. Nowadays, the majority of the time, we are adapting, yes, to a global culture. Yeah, not just, or in this case, to someone that doesn't have just that target culture. Yes? Good. Okay, I see a lot of messages there. Thank you. Okay, good. So I'm gonna move on because now we understand that, well, ELT is something glocal, with what glocal means. Now, what are the, let's say, the useful takings, right? Because of course you may be thinking, oh yeah, Sergio, you've been talking about culture and glocal and all that, but how am I going to apply this to my classroom? Yeah, how am I going to share this with my students? How can I make this something that is relevant for them, right? Don't worry, I'm going there. I'm going to show you two examples, yeah, and that's how we are going to be closing this talk. I'm going to show you two examples in which I have used, or I have set a glocal context, yeah, and I have exposed my students to different cultures and at the same time thinking about their own value and their own culture, right? I think it's a lot easier when you see it. So this is the first example, yeah. So don't worry much about the language or how we can use it, like what is the grammar point of this, or the vocabulary, or how can I. Don't worry about that, okay? Think that we are just going to mention the cultural aspect of this lesson. Imagine this is a text that you find in a textbook, or it's part of your lesson, yeah. And it's a text that talks about body language, yeah. Body language in different parts of the world, yeah. Here I just showed three examples, yeah, that I think are probably well known for being really for having very interesting body language, right? Like Japan, Italy, and Brazil, right? So, of course, you expose your students to this text, yeah. That, by the way, is A1, easy text, no so difficult to understand for them, yeah. So I assume that you can use it in your classrooms. Feel free to screenshot if you want to use this text and use it in your classrooms. But then, what would be the cultural aspect of this? Yeah, I mean, apart from exploiting the text and think about the grammar or the vocabulary or something else. Well, let's just think of the cultural aspect of this. Yeah. And that would be what asking students. Yeah. Would it be difficult to communicate with them? Do you think, first of all, make them reflect about how difficult it would be to communicate with people from these countries, right? Again, we are still grouping them as if they were, like classifications, but it's still part of the plan. Yeah. Would it be difficult to communicate with people from Japan, people from Italy, people from Brazil? And if so, well, after sharing this, it's important to reflect on something. Yeah. What features of communication do you think people from other countries might find hard or difficult about people in our own country or region? Yeah, it's something that we don't often think about. Yeah. And I'm going to mention an example to you very quickly. The first time I went to the UK, I remember, well, here in Mexico, you know that when we say thank you, we normally use this gesture to say thank you. And yeah, the first time I went to the UK and I did this, a friend of mine told me, "Oh, what is that? What do you mean with that?" I said, "Well, I'm just saying thank you. I'm just, showing thank you." And he said, "Well, you know what? I think you should be careful because you don't know, and especially in London, with that is, a cultural mixture of people from everywhere. Maybe you don't know how. I mean, if that means something different in other countries, right? Or if it really means something else, right? So be careful with that." And then I became aware of that. I became aware of that thing, yeah. Because again, sometimes we take things for granted, and we don't think of how my body language affects other people. So at the end, your students would be thinking, okay, today I learned about other cultures. I realize my own cultural values, yeah, because I reflect about them, and then I become glocally aware, right? I become aware of how this relationship between local and global can work. The second example is, well, it's about the Inuit people, yeah, solving conflicts. The same is a short text, very quick, very short, quick text about solving conflicts among the Inuit people. Don't worry, you can exploit it as you wish, the past simple, certain vocabulary. But the important thing is the cultural aspect of this. Yeah, this cultural reflection. How do you solve conflicts in not just in your country, but now in your very, very local context? Yeah, in your school or in your classroom. I know some schools have protocols for this, but make your students reflect about this. How do you solve conflicts? Yeah. Again, you learn about other cultures. Yeah. You realize your own cultural values about solving conflicts. How do we in this country, in this region of Mexico, Colombia, Peru, how do we solve conflicts? And I become glocally aware. Yeah. So these are two examples that I have used with students, so they become glocally aware. Yeah. And well, other global topics that might be useful when trying to bring up this glocal idea to the classroom are global warming, discrimination, animal rights, healthy habits in general. I'm just going to go to the conclusions because I think we have just 2 or 3 more minutes. Yeah. The conclusions that I take. Culture is something dynamic, right? It's something that changes all the time. Yeah. What is particular now, what is Mexican now, in 5 years can be something global, right? So we need to be ready for these changes. Meaning of cultural symbols can vary from culture to culture, right? Coffee can mean something to Colombians, but it means something totally different for Peruvians. Yeah. So culture, these symbols can vary. Yeah. English isn't owned by a particular culture nowadays. Nowadays, it's a global language. Yeah. So we need to think of that. We need to think that English, even if it's still associated, of course, with the USA and the UK and different countries that speak the language as their first language, well, nowadays it's something global. It's something that can be related to every country, right? Of course, it's impossible to teach everybody's culture. It's impossible to then, okay, so now English is global. So today we're going to teach the culture of, I don't know, Singapore, and next day the culture of Thailand, and next day the culture of Switzerland. It's impossible, right? But then we need to create certain strategies so students are aware of this situation. And finally, the most important conclusion, becoming glocally aware means, and I wanted to go to the chat box and write your own conclusion, what it means to become glocally aware. Yeah. You didn't get... Okay, well, some of you are talking about sharing personal information. Don't worry. Just go to the chat box and try to think of a good conclusion. Okay, a new world. Yeah, speaking English is more important. Okay, open mind. Exactly. Know your own culture. Yeah, as some of the authorities mentioned that today. We need to learn English in order to have our own voice in the world, right? A very local voice that makes us unique, but that at the same time can be part of the global dialogue, right? Diversity, connection, respect, open mind. Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you. Well, I am going to show you my own conclusion. Yeah. That is at the very bottom of this slide. Becoming globally aware means to be cultural aware, or to make my students culturally prepared to face to face communication breakdowns and negotiate towards a solution. Yeah. So that is what it means to be or to become globally aware, right? To prepare our students, to prepare even us as teachers, yeah, to live in this world in which English is not just something that belongs to a certain culture. Now it belongs to everybody, and how we can adapt, how we can be part of this global dialogue by having a strong voice, strong identity, and sharing that with the world. I think that's it. Thank you very much. I was very, very happy to be talking to you guys. To be chatting and talking and sharing this. There's my email. If you have any question, I would be extremely happy to just get an email and see that you enjoyed this stuff. Thank you very much, Ali.
Well, thank you, Sergio Duran, for this insightful presentation and for sharing your experiences with us today. We would also like to thank all the participants for their comments, questions, and very active participation throughout the chat. Remember, your contributions have made this space a meaningful and engaging exchange. Thank you again, Sergio.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Now, you can join the next session by clicking on the Enter Here or Join Here button available in the event. See you in a minute.